How's it going? Adam Drake here, and today I'm going to share a little bit of information about fuel filters and why they're not really needed or used much anymore. External fuel filters, that is. So, all the Mugen cars come with the stock fuel line routing to be able to use an external fuel filter. And that's kind of just a, I guess, added safety precaution, but yes, it is a extra filter for the fuel, but it also can cause additional problems. So for me, I feel like it's actually safer to omit that external filter because with the external filter, it's an extra part of the fuel line system that can leak or get caught on the linkage. I always feel like you want to have the fuel line routed as clean and simple as possible. In the past, the external filters were needed because the fuel tanks were different. The fuel tanks used to be where it did have an internal filter, but it wasn't a moving clunk type of system. It was a fixed filter, which is the way that the MBX8TR tank is. So with my MBX8T, I do run a little bit of additional fuel line because what happens is when the car or truck then flips upside down, that clunk isn't moving to where it can pick up fuel. So if it sits upside down for a long period of time, it will stop drawing fuel and draw a little bit of air. So you want to make sure you have a little bit of extra volume in the line. So back in the day, that was one of the reasons why the fuel filters were so important, is because if it did sit upside down, it allowed the fuel system to have a little bit of kind of fuel in reserve in a sense. But nowadays, most cars have a clunk system to where when you flip upside down, that clunk moves and it's able to pick up fuel at any orientation. So if the car is on its side, upside down, or right side up, it's still able to pick up fuel. And again, you want to make sure your fuel system and the fuel line routing is as clean as possible. And also to where there's really no chance of the fuel line getting caught by the air filter, by the linkage. So I try to just make the line as simple and clean as possible for both the fuel line and pressure line. So they just go directly from the tank alongside the pipe into the carburetor and into the pipe. Another thing that where guys sometimes they'll add filters because they're wanting to increase fuel mileage. And yes, you are increasing your fuel system's capacity, but you're not increasing replenishable fuel that can be replenished each time you pit. So what I mean by that is if your tank is undersized, but you have a lot of external line, when you come in and fuel, you can't replenish what's in the line. What's in the line is what's in the line. So when you use a fuel bottle or a fuel gun, you can only put fuel in the place that's replenishable, which is the tank. So say you have a tank that's 120 cc's, but you have 5 cc's of line, you can only ever replenish that 120 cc's. If you make the tank a little bit bigger and reduce the line, you can replenish more fuel. So technically, running that extra fuel line, it would help for like a qualifier, or if it's just like a single 10-minute race where you're topping off and you're just running and you're not refueling. What you'll see happen sometimes with guys, say it's a 20-minute main, they go 10 minutes on the first stop, refuel, and then maybe run out on the second stop. And it's because you can't completely run out and then replenish what's in the line. You can only replenish the space that's available in the tank. And then also, like I've mentioned, all that extra line and the fittings, it just can create more problems because it's more connections. The fuel filters can come loose and leak. It just overall can make for a more inconsistent running fuel system. But again, just wanted to give a little feedback on why fuel filters used to be used, but are no longer used in most cases, and that's because the tanks have changed to have the floating clunk style system.